This is Dirshu Mishnah Berurah as we continue learning Siman Nun Hey. Today we're going to be learning Sif Yud Gimel through Yud Zayin. We already began Sif Yud Gimel, in which the Mechaber taught us that all 10 Jews that are part of the minyan have to be in one area, and if someone's standing on a door, it has to do with when the door is closed, which side do they find themselves. If they find themselves outside when the door is closed, then they have a din of being outside and not being in the same rishos, in which is necessary for the minyan to combine. And as we mentioned, this was a very relevant halacha by COVID when we were trying to figure out different ways of having minyanim. So let's learn this properly. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sefkot and Memches Kol Asara Afilu Minon Rayim Elu Elu. Says the Mishnah Berurah, even if they don't see each other, still, if they're in one house, they combine for a minyan. They're in two different rooms. Then they do not combine, even though the door opens up between them. Mishom de'ein sham pirza. There's no opening. A door is like a mechitza, like a separation. And two rooms, even though there is a doorway in between, but because it's not like an opening between the rooms, therefore it's like being in two different houses. Even if there's no door, if it's two different rishiyas, then they do not see each other, then it does not combine. So we're seeing over here that when does the din of royin come in? When does it have to do with if you could see? Is when you're in two different rishuyos. If you're in one rishos, you're in one massive room, even if you can't necessarily see the other person, it's considered one rishos and it's called a minyan. If you're in two different areas, then it has to do with seeing each other. Says nine are in one house and one is outside in the sukkah. Some say it works. And one is outside of a canopy or a curtain that is there for sneeze purposes, mitzarfin, then it does work. Says Mishnah Berurah, that's only if the vila in this curtain is there for privacy reasons. Avlim ika tefillin, but if there are tefillin, oy sefer Torah. If the tefillin are sefer Torah, Dirshu Sadin, and they spread out a sheet. Now we get to learn how halacha creates rishuyos. Says Mishnah Berurah, let's say there is tefillin or a sefer Torah in the room, and it's one's bedroom. And therefore, one wants to be mishamish mitasei, but the halacha is you can't be mishamish mitasei in the same room as tefillin or sefer Torah. So what do? They put up a sheet in order to make it into a separate room. They attach the mechitza, the sheet from top and bottom, so that has a din of a mechitza. And now, if the tefillin and the sefer Torah are in a separate shos, now says the Mishnah Berurah, now it's called a separate room. And now if you have 9 people on one side and one person on the other side of this, it does not work. Privigadim holds that in all these scenarios it is yes, mitzarif. And now the Sif concluded with this din of the doorway, that if someone is standing inside a doorway and inside the doorway what happens is there is a door, so if the door closes and you find yourself on the outside, then it's not considered like you're in the rishos. The safa penimis sifkat non rotzalaima. The place of closing the door has the din of outside. Says the Mishnah Berurah, right now the door is open. But because when the door will be closed, you find yourself on the outside, you're considered on the outside. There are those that argue. There are those that argue and say that no, right on the door step is considered like inside. The minority is standing within this place. It does yes work. Says the Mishnah Berurah Muvur B'Sif Tazayin, as we'll see at the end of today's shir, if we have a small chutzner that opens into a large chutzner, it is called one rishos chemasha bir agra, and therefore the Siman Ebenezer holds that if you're in the doorway, it is considered one rishos. And it continues Mishnah Berurah Shalavi Adelos of Katan on Aleph Ayin B'Yad Afraim Shekos Debachal Pesach Levan Makom Adelos. The air space of the door, aside from the place of the door itself, kegoin You have a thick doorstep. Everyone holds that's part of the inside. Says Mishnah Berurah, even though the Pri Megadim sounds like Rabbeinu Yerucham holds that it's din of outside, many argue, and we continue over here with Sif Yod Daled, says the Mechaber. So there's a shul with a window, and you're standing outside the window, even if it's very tall, even if it's not 4 tefachim wide, you are yes part of the minyan. It says the Rama, roofs and attics do not have a din of a house. And if you're standing on the roof, if you're standing on the attic, they are not considered part of the building, and you are not combining for the minyan. Says the Mishnah Berurah, if Katan and Beis, this din of a window, you are yes mitzarev yimayim. Even though there's a mechitza, there's the whole wall that separates you. Since you could see each other, because they could see you. And this was the line when we were making minyanim on porches, and different people, and different rishiyos, and different people on the roof, etc. That we learned that if one person could see the other, even though you're in a completely different rishos, like you're on 2 different porches was one example, but you could see the other person, then it's yes mitzaref. Now, I should be careful, not every case is comparable to each other. It's true. Let's focus on this case. Now, when one is outside of a building and they see through a window, that is the case that we're discussing, that it will be yes mitzaref. Continues the Mishnah Berurah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, it's obvious. Someone is standing in the woman's gallery, and there's a window in the area that separates them, and you can see each other. You yes combine for a minyan, so no one has to be worried about standing in the woman's section. Says Mishnah Berurah, it's pashit that you're part of the minyan. This is an important line. If there's already a minyan and you are just standing on the opposite side, then certainly, says the Mishnah Berurah, kol shekain, it's considered tefillah b'tzibur. Vav al pikin yoser toiv, but still it is better. If it's easy to go down, you should go down. Some argue on this whole comparison of our whole sif. Our whole sif is predicated on the fact that the Royim Zeh, like we see by halachos of Siman, seeing each other, makes it into one Rishos, and therefore it will work for a minyan as well. And therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah, because there are those that argue, Lichatchila, one should not rely on this, and if it's easy, he should go down and not rely on the fact that he can see each other. And we concluded this Sif in Sif Yudalad with the Mishnah Berurah explaining Sif Katan and Gimel, that Gagin and Aliyah is roofs and attics, in this scenario where they cannot see each other. Rabusu Laimar. Could have said even a bigger Chiddush. Even if you could, yes, see, but you're not on the same level. That's why we said before that a case of a porch is not necessarily so simple, because as we're seeing over here, if you have a large window that is deep, but it's not equal to the same ground of the shul, that itself might be a problem. And that might be the reason that if someone is on different porches and different levels, it's not so simple that it will yes be mitzaref, like we learned in Sif Yudalid, that if you could see each other, it's mitzaref. We continue, Sif Tezvav, says the Mechaber. We have a few people inside, a few people outside, and the Sheikh Sibur snack in the middle. Ho mitzaref, if he combines with them. Says Mishnah Berurah, Sif Katan non Dalid. Who mitzarf in the kiman shliach tzibur, because he's the shliach tzibur. Kol echad noisin daito love. Everyone relies upon him. V'hu mechaber yachad, and he connects everyone together. So if the man in the middle can see everyone, if the shliach tzibur sees both parties, that is enough. Certainly, if there's 9 inside and he's the one man in the middle, it's mitzaref. As we'll see in the next year, that Siv Yud Zayin is different. The kiman shu b'chatzar gedola hareyu muflag me'at tzibur. Because the chatzar gedola, it's considered that you're separate from the tzibur. U'ba'adam acher she'ino shliach tzibur, someone who's not a shliach tzibur. Afilu levadeh al miftan abayis zinu mitzaref d'mayim. Then he's not mitzaref kaman ukalei Sif Yud Gimel, as we've seen that on the doorstep is not mitzaref. Chol zeh davka b'shein arayin elu elu. Says Mishnah Berurah, don't forget Sif Yud Daled. Don't forget the comparison to Siman. It's only if you don't see each other. If you can see each other, I think once if you can see each other, then you are yes mitzaref. And we conclude today's shir with Sif Tes Zayin. Says the Mechaber. We have a small chatzar that opens to a large chatzar. The Hainu. It's opened into a large chatzar and the wall that separates between the small and large chatzar falls down. And the large one has part of the wall left. A bit on either side. The large chatzar is as if it's separate from the small one. But the small is not considered separate from the large. Ella, harei kikaren zavish ella. Concept we find in the Gemara's in Sukkah, that the Gemara in Shabbos, we had similar concepts, that the small chutzner is considered like a little blind corner, that the small chutzner is considered a whole, an entity of the larger chutzner. Lefika. So now, what's the takeaway? Says the Mechaber. If you have 9 in the Gedalah and 1 is in the Ketana, which we said, the small chutzner in relation to the large chutzner is considered like this corner, it works. Because the small is drawn after the large, and it's as if it's within the large chatzar, since the majority are inside the large chatzar. Avol, says the Mechaber, but if it's 50-50 or more in the ketana, then it does not work. Because again, the small area is drawn after the larger. So if in the larger you have roiv, then the small area could be mashlim, could complete. But for the small area to have substantial and significant counting, the fact that it would have 9 or it would have even 5 would not work. And here we have one Mishnah Berurah Sivkatan and Hey that explains that when you have Tisha B'Gedayla Haklal, what's the rule, says the Mishnah Berurah? As we just said, the large chutzner cannot be drawn after the small chutzner. The large chutzner, in relationship to the small chutzner, is considered mufleges, it's considered separate. And the chativer cannot be drawn after one. Even 5 after 5. Rak. Only one person who's in the small chatzar could, yes, be drawn after the tzibur in the larger chatzar. And the Mir Hashem will pick it up from Sif Yud Zayin.